functions of a team. I am just going to start with a little introduction. So, Andy Forrest, I obviously basically now work in the AM team as one of the developers. I've been here for almost 6 years. So 6 years ago, there was a little team of us, myself, Phil, Rob, and Jonathan, and a couple others. I think it was Jonathan and Natalie. And it's been really interesting to see how we've grown here in Bristol over time. So going from about 5 or 6 of us to now about 100 of us. And that will come in a minute. One thing I put down here is I'm a people person. So I like people, and I think that's one of the things that Jonathan mentioned in my interview was most developers come out having an obsession with computers. But my main interest is people. I really enjoy people, and that covers all sorts of aspects of life, whether that's investing in people here, whether that's investing in people on the streets. We have a big street community. Also do various mentoring stuff outside of work with our church and stuff like that. And all of that's kind of a backdrop to wanting to be a team advocate. So obviously people make up the team. Before we jump into the dysfunctions of the team, why do we care about teams? Why don't we just have a bunch of individuals working? Why do we choose to work as teams? After all, if we were working as an individual, then you can be more efficient, you can get stuff done quickly, you don't have to worry about the conflicts, trying to talk about which design, that kind of thing. You get to make all the choices. At the end of the day, you get all the praise. Whereas we know that there's been lots of research done on teams that actually working as teams where we get the best benefit. Whether it's through learning, collaboration, the opportunity to share ideas, and just the motivation to being part of the team. So, 5 Dysfunctions of the Team is a book. I'm sure some of you have read it. The author is Patrick Lencioni, whose name I always struggle to say. He's a writer, a speaker, and a consultant. And basically, he focuses on organisation health, teamwork, and employee engagement. So he has a consultancy team, and which are based in San Francisco, and they go out working with different teams. Their main focus is the SEC teams, so they spend a lot of time working with SEC teams across different tech areas and various things like that. But they also do other stuff, like they work with sports teams and all sorts of stuff. So, and this particular book then is obviously, as I said, look at the 5 dysfunctions of a team. And the way Patrick writes his books, he often writes them as a fable. So it's a fictional story that depicts the point he's trying to get across. And so in this fable, he's portraying, it's quite interesting actually, you'll see some correlation. It's basically portraying a startup company based in San Francisco. They've been doing really well, they've had loads of growth, and they've kind of petered out, they're starting to struggle. And they've just got rid of their CEO, they've just got in a new CEO. So there's lots of things here that kind of match up. And so basically the new CEO's come in and she's trying to present this model to them, and they've had all these various offsites. And so the model here, as we'll come to see in a minute, I'll jump into it. Let's see. So here's a quote from his book. Genuine teamwork in most organizations remains as elusive as ever. Organizations fail to achieve teamwork because they unknowingly fall prey to the 5 natural but dangerous pitfalls. So obviously this is his kind of version of what these 5 dysfunctions are. Obviously there's lots of different approaches that we can take to looking at teams. This is just one of the approaches. And it'll be interesting to see what people think about them at the end. So my hope is for this talk that, as I mentioned earlier, we have been growing. Growth is fantastic, that's what we want. But there comes a challenge with that, how do we keep our values and our culture alive? How do we keep permeating those? And back in the day when there was just the 5 of us and we were just that small team, it was very easy to kind of bounce off each other, particularly when we had Jonathan in the team who back in the day kind of really embodied those values, still does. But as we grow as a team and as people become more kind of removed, I guess, and particularly as we bring new people who come with their own cultures and experiences, and we have teams that are perhaps made up of newer people, how do we keep those values and culture alive? So for this talk, I hope to inspire some team reflection. Like I said, there's 5 dysfunctions, and there's a question here that would be great for people to take back to their teams and do, and I'll jump back into a bit later. So what I'm going to talk about is certainly far from being intelligent. It's all very common sense. You'll probably hear the dysfunctions and think that makes sense. I already know this stuff, but we fall short to them all the time, and that's the bit where it's hard. It's hard putting the stuff into practice. So this is a quote: people need to be reminded more than they need to be instructed. So I'm hoping that a lot of this stuff here is about reminding you guys of stuff you may already know. So jumping in, first dysfunction. And as you'll see as we go through these dysfunction, one builds upon the other. So the first one is absence of trust. So at the core of any relationship, we have trust. And I think that's quite obvious, whether that's in a marriage, whether that's in a family, amongst friends, and also very true as a team. But it's perhaps not what we think it to be, in the sense that when we think about work, we often think of trust in the sense of, I've worked with you for a length of time, I know what you're capable of delivering, and I trust you to deliver a certain quality because there's that predictive nature to it. What we're less familiar with is actually what we're referring to as trust in the vulnerable sense, having teams where members can be truly vulnerable about their weaknesses, their issues. In the work context, we're not talking about necessarily marital issues. And this is hard because in society, we're told that being vulnerable isn't the cool thing, right? Isn't good. It means we appear strong. We can't admit our weaknesses. And the whole culture reinforces that by saying that we need to be going after our careers, getting one step ahead. That we don't want to be vulnerable. You need to put on hard fronts in order to beat our members in our team, rather than to work together in harmony. This is where ego can come in. So egos, when we allow our own ambitions, our own motivations, and I've definitely been guilty of this, where I wanted to prove my abilities and I pick up that piece of work. I don't want to share it with the team. I want to demonstrate to everyone else that, hey, look at this great piece of code. And so ego can come in the way. And when we have someone who's unwilling to be vulnerable about their issues, that can have a whole impact on the rest of the team, and stop the rest of the team from being honest and open about the things they're struggling with. On the flip side to that, we have the thing called the imposter syndrome, which I'm sure many of you have heard of, and this is something I fall prey to. So this is my vulnerable moment. And this is basically where you feel like you're an imposter in the workplace. You don't feel you're good enough to given that, or somehow you're going to be caught out and be seen as a fraud. And this can also have an impact, because the result of that means you withdraw from being, again, honest and open because you're afraid of being caught out. So what we need to do is to nurture teams with safe environments where as a team we collectively come together. We can acknowledge that actually being vulnerable about the things I'm struggling with, the mistakes I've made, is actually a good thing. And that in order to do that, that will create a good strength of trust in the team. So I saw this recently and I quite like this analogy, and I'm not saying that we need to look like a military team, but obviously the military put a big emphasis on the team. And what's interesting when I was looking at this was that in the military, you get rewarded for sacrificing your life for your team. But in business, we're so often encouraged to sacrifice others in order to be rewarded. We get the bonus by getting one step ahead of our team. And again, that's something to keep in mind, that if we are going to have good functioning teams, we need to be willing to sacrifice ourselves for our team. Not literally die, but you know what I mean? So this leads on to the next dysfunction. So without having a good level of trust and vulnerability in the team, it's hard to have an honest conversation. And this one, fear of conflict, is an interesting one, because we think conflict in the teams, surely that's a bad thing, that's something we want to suppress and get rid of. We don't want interpersonal negative conflict. But what we're actually talking about here is conflict that's trying to be ideological, driving towards a particular decision or outcome. And it's about passion-filled, not interpersonal conflict. So it may be that we're talking about a particular technical idea, and we want we want everyone to engage with that. And sometimes people might get excited about that. There might look like interpersonal conflict. It might look like people are getting frustrated and angry. But ultimately, what we're trying to do there is driving for the best solution. And in an environment where we have that trust and vulnerability, that's okay, because we understand that it's not interpersonal. It is that collective drive to find the best result. And ultimately, we recognize that conflict helps growth. So if we think about a marriage, often, or in any relationship, often we think that the classic thing that if you see arguments in a relationship, you think that's a bad thing. But often, actually, relationships break down, often where there aren't any arguments. And that's because people aren't able to vocalize their frustrations, their concerns, their issues. And by actually being comfortable with having those debates allows us to grow. And similarly here, the temptation to suppress that, that debate means that people don't vocalize their issues, they don't vocalize their concerns. And we think in the long term that somehow to suppress that conflict might be better for the relationship or the team, but actually it just creates resentment, frustration with members whose behavior might be unhelpful to the team. The big one here is all voices. It's not just the few loud voices, the people with the big egos, the extroverts. We're talking about everyone needs to be a part of it. This is where team leaders, or in our case, outdoor coaches, I think play a big part by really helping every member to engage. And as I said already, being okay with discomfort is okay so long as we're not being interpersonal, we're not being mean, we're not being attacking individuals. Okay, so the third dysfunction, lack of commitment. So if we don't have healthy teams, if we don't have a healthy level of trust and openness, if we aren't able to have those honest conversations, then it's hard to commit to anything. So basically, we don't have people weighing in on what we're trying to decide on moving forward. It's unlikely those people are going to buy in. And so by having debate and being able to extract out information from everyone in the team, it helps us to identify what is it clearly that we want to go on to, and it's trying to pull out all the information. Because the information isn't people, and we've definitely had that in our team where we've gone around in circles, and then eventually we might hear from someone else and go, that's the information we need right there, and it helps us to get those decisions and to make something clear. So consensus, I think, is something we fall prey to, and it's something I've definitely seen in our team at times where we want everyone to feel happy. We want everyone to be pleased, everyone to have buy-in to the ultimate decision. And then actually there's dangers around this, because we can end up in deadlock situations where we just go around in circles, and we can easily waste days on, if it's trying to work on a technical decision or architectural design, it's easy to try to want to please everyone. And actually the important thing here is more that if everyone is buying in, if everyone's contributing to the discussion, and everyone's being heard and genuinely being heard, and that every team member is interested in that, then it isn't so much about everyone having a consensus, but and sometimes we might get to a point where a leader needs to make the final decision. The important thing is that everyone's heard, and it's that I think it's called disagree and commit. I think is a classic term here, where there might be a few people that disagree, but it's about acknowledging, saying, look, we appreciate your viewpoint, but we need to make a decision. Let's make this decision, and we may be wrong, you might be right. And like I said, sometimes the leader needs to make the call on that. So a decision is better than no decision. And again, this is where we can get hung up on wanting absolute clarity before we make any decision. It's easy to, and again, I think we've done this where we want to keep investigating before we commit to what the story is in the case of engineering. When actually sometimes it's better to make a decision, and with the information you do have as a team, and be able to kind of fail quickly. So I wrote down here, fail boldly, and make bold decisions and fail boldly. And if we can do that frequently and get that iteration going quickly, we can quickly recover and end up on the path that's taking us in the right direction. So what we don't want is the risk of trying to have all the clarity and details that we put off, and we can miss out on opportunities. So again, if you haven't had broad buy-in, if you haven't been heard, if a leader's just gone, this is a decision, I don't care what the rest of you think, then that can lead to resentment in the team and individuals getting frustrated, not buying into the direction of the team, and a worst case scenario leading to an individual wanting to sabotage the team in the sense of waiting for the team to fail on certain issues. So this leads us on to the fourth dysfunction, which is avoidance of accountability. So if we don't have clear decisions, clear direction as a team where we're going, then it's hard to hold another accountable. And here it's all about wanting to reach our full potential as a team, a full potential as individuals. This is a quote from the book, Ends of the Danger, and I'm not too keen on this phrase, but basically what the thing about accountability and why we avoid it is that it's uncomfortable. We don't want to have to deal with those awkward situations, the interpersonal conflict, whether it's as a team leader, someone's behavior in a team is unhelpful. It's so easy to want to make excuses to not have to address that. But here it's saying, enter that danger zone, be willing to kind of enter that discomfort and have that accountability. And And something we don't do that often is peer-to-peer, where actually what we really want is teams, if we are all synchronized around and committed to specific goals, they're holding one another accountable. And this isn't in a kind of a malicious attacking way, this is in a non-judgmental way. It's about coming alongside individuals and saying, look, the way you just communicated was really unhelpful, or what you're focusing on doesn't look like the goal at hand. And we can be doing better. Let's kind of push together. How can I help you? Again, similar to earlier, the conflict, the temptation here is to avoid it, thinking that we could want to protect a relationship, particularly if we're close to someone. So we're in a team, the temptation is to not want to kind of stir up that relationship. But actually, by not addressing those issues with individuals, it just causes us to push away and causes us to get frustrated. Maybe we seek out kind of back channels to talk about the individual, to let our frustrations elsewhere. And again, that can be negative to the team. So ultimately, issues become norms and norms become culture. And as we know, when culture is in place, that's a much bigger thing to change. So it's all about getting in there early. Ultimately, as teams and individuals, we don't want to settle for second best. So the final dysfunction, inattention to results. So if we're not holding one another accountable, then it's going to be really easy to become distracted. And in a way, not holding people accountable is that invitation. It allows people to get distracted by the tasks and not ultimately interested in the results of the team. And this is where ego and status can come in. And the temptation here is to, again, I'm just not interested in this team. I'm not interested in the goal. I'm not committed. No one's holding me accountable. I'm going to start looking at my own thing and my own objectives, and showing that I'm better or whatever. And this is an interesting one. I don't think we have this issue here. I think we have lots of great teams, but this is the one where maybe there's that team you've always wanted to be a part of. You don't actually care about the results of the team. You just want to be in it. And so there's that sense of that learn to the team, you're drawn into the team, you've become part of it. But ultimately, it's just for you and your sense of status being part of that team. And something that's helpful here for teams to consider is granular results. So as in engineering, we think about sprint goals, that they are our goals, but maybe they're too coarse-grained. Maybe we need to think about, okay, what's smaller milestones that we can measure ourselves on throughout the sprint. Maybe there's a smaller set of results that we can, and the idea there is just keeping our focus, keeping us drawn into the ultimate goal. Some of us are in many teams, and it's important to better identify who is your primary team, which is your primary team. If you're going to be solely committed to the results of one team, how can you do that if you're across several teams? I think that's quite easy here, where we have our Scrum teams, and I think they are our primary teams. But maybe there's other parts of the organization where you're in a leadership team. Maybe you're in a leadership team, and it's trying to identify which is your primary team. Is it that leadership team, or is it the team you're leading? Almost finished. So aspirations, yes, but the team comes first. So you might think, hey, what about my career aspirations? Yes, I mean, of course, we're all about fostering career aspirations, and here we have mentoring, which is all part of that. But ultimately, when we're working as teams, it's about the team first. The team comes first, and it's about how can we drive that together. And obviously, aspirations are something we look at separately. So this is the model, ultimately. Absence of trust leads to invulnerability. Lack of vulnerability makes it hard to have these honest conversations, and the fear of conflict. A lack of conflict can drive artificial harmony. Lack of that artificial harmony means that we have that ambiguity, a lack of clarity around decisions. Ambiguity means it makes it hard to hold people accountable, which results in low standards, causing people to become distracted from the results and therefore getting caught up in status and ego. And you can flip it on the other side. So a healthy team looks like it trusts one another, it engages in unfiltered conflict around issues. A team that's healthy, it commits to decisions and plans of actions, holds one another accountable for delivering on those actions, and focuses on the achievements of the collective results. So where to start? I think the first place to start is acknowledging that we're imperfect humans. We're all human beings, we all fall short. I think we all fall prey to these dysfunctions. And the sooner we can acknowledge that and come together as teams and be like, where are our issues? I think we can start to move forward. So I mentioned I've got these questionnaires. They are per person. And so the idea here is, and I've only got 20, so we need to print more if you're interested. But it's only 15 questions. And I recommend getting one of these questionnaires each as in your team and doing them, and then being able to compare the results. And then we can then look at, so the book basically provides a whole lot of different exercises you could do. There could be something there if you acknowledge some of the dysfunctions in your team. Working on some of these exercises, and obviously there's lots of other exercises out there as well. And I'm very much happy to help out with any of that. So a couple of quotes to finish. This is again from the book. Practicing a small set of principles over a long period of time. And this stuff isn't easy. It's all about keep practicing. And success is not a matter of mastering the subtle, sophisticated theory, but of embracing common sense, uncommon levels of discipline and persistence. It is hard, and it does involve coming back and revisiting these dysfunctions. That's the end. Any questions?
So, when it comes down to decision making, how do you set my mind? Am I allowed?
Press the button first.
Squeeze it on mute. Lights.
Green's good. Yeah, so with decision-making processes and stuff, when you've got a lot of varied sort of skill sets, everyone's sort of really similar, what level of sort of applying a meritocracy do you see in these situations? Because there's got to be a decision made, right? So when it comes down to leaders, sort of what level of meritocracy do you apply when you're making decisions?
Well, I think, it's similar to what I was saying earlier, where I think the important thing is that everyone's buying in, putting their opinion forward. And that if you do get to the point where, so the book suggests this, and obviously there's loads of decision-making techniques, and I know that we've approached, I think we've looked at 5 different models here before.
How do you decide which one?
Huh?
How do you decide on which one?
I can't remember this or something, but I think maybe Rob, you brought up a few, didn't you? So basically the main idea behind this book that's suggesting is that if everyone's buying in, everyone's being heard, then, and it might be that as a team you get to that deadlock situation where you do need the leader to say, hang on, okay, let's just stop, let's take a break. You've all got brilliant ideas. I recognise your ideas, but let's just make a decision. We're going to commit to this decision and go forward. And the important thing there is that, disagree and commit, that at that point where whoever makes that decision, everyone is committed to it. And, the reason when people generally aren't committed is because they feel they haven't been heard or they're not behind the idea. But if there is that appreciation of their idea and acknowledgement that maybe their idea might be the right one, I think we can get that commitment still.
Something sprung to mind, and you may have already covered it before I joined, because I was looking at which is about decision making. I don't know if you know the phrase, perfection is the enemy of the good.
Mm-hmm.
Because I think, and particularly in this kind of environment, technical people, engineers, they're drawn to it because personality-wise, they like kind of perfection. They like the kind of elegance and beauty of a good solution. And that can often inhibit decision making as well. I think often when you leave people behind, it's because they don't think it's the perfect solution. And so you've got to kind of get people to put that aside and be prepared to accept a little bit of compromise on the basis that, as you said, a decision is better than a decision. The other point I was going to make was that a lot of this applies to personal relationships as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, totally. Yeah, definitely. Cool, I'm glad you all agree with me. Anyone disagree? Any objections?
No one's prepared to kind of volunteer conflict.
No, come on, please.
I think it's rubbish.
So you've mentioned a lot about decisions. One of the key points is when you made a decision, deciding on the timing to revisit that decision. Yes, it's always important. People make decisions, they charge out, and it's having those checks and balances to say, are we still on track? Is that decision still relevant? Have we made a good one?
Mm-hmm. I agree. And I think that's where it comes down to the fifth dysfunction about wanting to have a clear set of results as a team you're working towards that you can go back to and keep revisiting. And it could be that you've made a decision. So in our case, it could be the sprint goal. But what are some more granular decisions that we can, or like checkpoints that we can check that we are moving on the right way?
Was there any difference in the book between decisions about the team are going to take and then conflict within the team? Does that make sense in terms of, let's say, the team, someone in the team is the person that shouts the loudest or turns up late, versus the ability to make decisions and behave as a team?
So you were talking about kind of behavioural stuff versus kind of the pragmatic part. Yeah, not really. I mean, so when it talks about accountability, then it is referring to accountability of both. Are we on track as a team and individuals going, of course, on the goal, but also the behaviours of the team as well. So it's about looking at behaviours that it might be unhelpful or destructive to the team.
Sorry. Thanks. So you mentioned military versus business. What was the second word in that phrase? Reward. Yes.
Yeah.
So I think you all sort of focused almost on about what you should be thinking of as an individual, but did the book talk at all about how you, as an organisation or a system, construct it such that the rewards are for that behaviour? I suppose in a business you are, like you said, you are rewarded for things that you are given promotions and pay rises and things as an individual, not as a team. Talk about that.
No, it didn't. But I mean, I guess maybe Jonathan might have something to say about the. I was going to say the stocks and shares stuff. I guess having stock options means that collectively we are interested in the ultimate success of the business. He doesn't, like I say, doesn't really touch on these things very much.
Great. Well, cool. Thank you very much.